Okay, I'd like to welcome everybody here today to our first Climate Action Plan annual meeting. And the words that I want to start with again are thank you to the people here, to the people watching, and to everybody that's had a part of this process. A lot of times there's conversations about, how do you make the most amount of progress in a community on these shared goals? And in Bethlehem, we have that formula pretty well down. The idea that we get as many organizations as we can, as many people as possible working in the same direction. And this is truly an awesome day for us in the city. We've been planning this day for a while because when we launched our climate action plan, it became a situation where we wanted to make sure that we were sharing all of the wonderful things people are doing on a day-to-day basis. Oftentimes, I'm the one in this position that gets to talk about them, but the best part of my job is understanding how many people inside and outside of City Hall are doing wonderful things for our community. And our climate action plan was launched under this idea that we wanted to create a more sustainable Bethlehem. Obviously, it is a global issue, but it is also an issue on our local level that we see the effects of here in the community. And we have a lot of people that care about it. We have a lot of businesses that care about it, institutions, individuals, and city employees. So what we wanted to do here in the city when we had put together that process for the Climate Action Plan several years ago was to be able to create that vehicle, create those groups of people to be able to come together, to work on those shared priorities that we're going to talk about today as far as sustainability is concerned. Today is going to be about sharing both what we've accomplished in 2023 as well as looking forward to 2024. But also we have a big announcement at the end of the day today, the end of our program, where we're going to talk about kind of the exciting next step for the Climate Action Plan as we look outside of City Hall. I do want to once again just thank everybody here today. We have our wonderful folks from WSB, who this would not be possible without. We need to give them a big round of applause. I know we have members of our Environmental Advisory Council who have been doing wonderful work for years and years on issues having to do with the environment and sustainability, and I want to make sure that we recognize them as well. I see Ben and Catherine. I also see Councilwoman Wilhelm here as well. Councilwoman Kwiatek has also, and Councilwoman Leone as well, have done a lot of work on the Climate Action Plan. And there's a lot of different ways I think you can be a council person, but they are three examples of people that want to be part of initiatives that are moving the city forward. And we cannot thank Kira and Hillary and Rachel for all of their work to be able to both support the funding that we need to be able to make these investments, but also just coming to all the meetings and being voices of progress and optimism as far as what we can accomplish. So I want to thank them as well. And I obviously want to thank all of our city employees too. The stories you're going to hear about what our city employees have done in a lot of these different areas are very, very impressive. And that's not credit that I deserve or even a lot of the people in the mayor's office deserves. Ms. Stein has done an amazing job with the Climate Action Plan. But what is one of the big differences between Bethlehem and other communities and other cities is that we have so many employees that show up every day and they're passionate about their work. They're, how do we make the community a better place? They believe in the idea of the public good. This isn't just a job to them. It's not just, a pension. It's, I want to be a part of something that's special for our community. And I just can't thank them enough. And you're going to hear from a bunch of them today, but they deserve a big round of applause as well. And then just quickly to review, we are here today because so many partners in our community thought that coming together to be part of this planning process was important. As you can see up there, we have over 50 different organizations and institutions within the city of Bethlehem. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find one of our major partners or institutions in the city of Bethlehem that has not been part of the climate action planning process. And that has been a huge help and a huge asset in us being able to get where we are today. People are always calling us. They're always emailing, always saying, it's like, how do you put together this wonderful group of people? We just went and we talked to them. We asked them. We knew what they were doing on a daily basis within their own institutions and organizations. And this issue of sustainability is one that everybody is taking seriously. So we, or I shouldn't say everyone, most people are taking seriously. So we, though, in the city of Bethlehem thought that the success we could create is not about who's the mayor or what the administration's doing, but it's how do we take all of the impressive work we've done internally and looked outward, and that included getting our external partners. You can go. So what is our climate action plan? And many of you were part of that process, but it is really our roadmap for the future. And the process started where we talked a lot about how we could take climate action. And I was on city council for 14 years. And I can tell you that when we started talking about the idea of a climate action plan about 6 years ago, there's probably no single issue that I've seen more people become interested in. A lot of times you send out those emails, you send out those correspondences, like, if you care about this issue, contact your city council people. And, I just remember getting hundreds and hundreds of emails saying, like, we want to do something here in the city of Bethlehem. And when we launched that climate action plan, it was very much about the idea that there was not progress being made in Harrisburg or made in Washington. But one of the things that came out of that process relatively quickly was the idea that when we talk about climate action and we're talking about sustainability, we're also talking about what it is that people love about Bethlehem. The walkable neighborhoods, the parks in our neighborhoods, the fact that we have small businesses to support, that we have these wonderful institutions that care about leaving the world and leaving our city a better place. So it really has dovetailed nicely with a lot of the other work that we have done throughout our city as far as what the climate action plan was going to be. And one of the things that we also, I shouldn't fail to mention, is this really grew out of the work that the city had taken on about 15 years ago, when we had set our own carbon footprint reduction goals. I know Mr. Sabrinsky had helped out that time. I think that was about 2006, 2007. Mayor Callahan was the mayor at the time. And we set a goal, and we reached that goal within a couple of years. But kind of the genesis of the climate action plan was that we had now done some impressive work internally. And if you were at the budget presentation that I made yesterday, you heard about the amazing story about our streetlights and how we have saved millions of dollars over the past 13 years since we purchased those streetlights, and how we're going to save millions of dollars going into the future. And we did that in a way that was based on that idea of sustainability. So we were doing wonderful things before the climate action plan process started in 2017, but it really was, how do we take all of the internal work that we're doing and take that to externally. So go ahead, Angie, you can change it here. So why is this important? And then we're going to turn over to our implementation committees in just a minute. But I think we all know we continue to see extreme weather in the city of Bethlehem. We continue to see more and more of those events that we used to see once in a while that we're seeing on a regular basis. And we are not immune from the environment. We are not immune from climate change. I think we all can think of what those individual examples are here in the city of Bethlehem, but they are only going to increase. And one of the things that we've talked about from the beginning here is the idea that as we look into the future, the people that are going to be most affected by climate action, climate change, are probably not going to be most of us. We have a lot of resources. We live in neighborhoods, most of us do, that the mitigation is going to be easier than our most vulnerable populations. And that's one of the things that I think has been the most inspiring for us as we've gone through this process, is how many people from day one thought that this is not just about feeling good about doing something, it's about climate justice. It's about environmental justice. It's about how can we make sure that we truly are having a community where we are supporting and taking care of everyone, no matter what neighborhood they live in. The thing that we say around here all the time, it's not about feeling good about helping people, it's about helping people. And listening to people in all the different breakout sessions and the whole planning process is that was a core tenet of what we were trying to do here in the Climate Action Plan. With that being said, Angie, I think we can go to our next one here. I'm about to turn this over to Dr. Kate Jackson to start off our implementation committees. But just one other big thank you to WSP is, it's not easy to put together a climate action plan, in case you didn't know, because everybody has an idea. Everybody has an idea. How do we get more electric vehicles? How do we reduce our carbon footprint? How do we get more wind power? How do we create more walkable cities? You got to be able to put all of those things in some type of structural framework. It's like when you were in college or in high school and you got to read the book before you write the paper. Like, there were a lot of books that had to be read before you could put together the structure. And the planning process took a little while, but what we did in our climate action plan was create 9 different implementation committees that were going to be able to do this work into the future on a permanent basis. And that was an impressive intellectual task that WSP led with our climate action plan, because these things often get bogged down in passion. Everybody cares about the environment that are in these conversations, but the difference between taking action and just kind of staying in that neutral place comes down to some type of directed directed action that you're able to take and a structure that you're able to work through to be able to make progress. And I'm excited for everybody to hear over the next 45 minutes or so about all of the incredible progress that we're making in the city here. And then we're going to end with a big announcement about what is probably the biggest thing yet having to do with our climate action plan. So with that being said, I'm going to turn over to Dr. Jackson here to be able to lead off our conversation about environmental justice.
Good morning, friends. How are you? It is wonderful to be here with you. My name is Kate Jackson, and I am a new-ish resident of Bethlehem for the past year and a professor of environmental health and justice at Lehigh University. And I'm standing here right now as a representative of our wonderful, amazing Environmental Justice Steering Committee, which has been building a framework for equity and justice for our climate action plan. So just briefly, I wanted to share with you a few of the principles that guide us in our conversations and in our collaboration. So in the work that we do, and we are going to continue to do, we are guided by the movement of environmental justice, which affirms the right to a safe and thriving environment, free from discrimination, systemic injustice, and bias. And most importantly, environmental justice and climate justice honors the people who are most impacted by environmental injustice and recognizes them and honors them as a source of regenerative, sustainable, community-based practices that show us how to be in balance with nature, how to be resilient, how to take care of one another, and how to honor the diversity of our cultures because they understand the complex solutions that are needed to face the changing climate.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Hi, friends. I'm Janine Santoro, Director of Equity and Inclusion for the City of Bethlehem and currently chairing the Environmental Justice Steering Committee. Dr. Jackson is one of many folks on the committee that is helping to create this framework as she introduced. And so to pick up where she left off, when we talk about environmental justice issues, we're talking about changing the narrative from helping communities to be resilient and instead helping them to be empowered. So that means that we are taking time, and we have this past year, with talking to each neighborhood that we know are most affected by climate change and learning about their unique history, their population, their challenges, and their access to resources. The EJ Steering Committee is comprised of those who are in academia, in local government, grassroots organizations, small businesses, nonprofits, and city council, and represent a variety of neighborhoods in Bethlehem and beyond. Each person through the steering committee and in their organizations have been intentionally building relationships over the past year where they haven't existed before and strengthening the ones that currently exist. They've been developing trust and lasting relationships to prevent harm as we work on the initiatives in the CAP and making sure that we're prioritizing the needs of the community in city agendas, programs, and policies. The accomplishments of the 2022 to 2023 year are a combination of projects that the steering committee either weighed in on or facilitated, or work that has happened concurrently with our Health Bureau, Public Works, and Community Economic Development departments that align with the environmental justice considerations and goals in the Climate Action Plan. So in the past year, and you can see a full list of these on the We Build Bethlehem platform, but just to name a few in terms of maintaining and preserving green spaces, there was recently a $200,000 grant that was received this fall and will be invested in Saucon Park to address overgrowth and restore the pavilions there, and replace playground equipment which had fallen to disrepair after Hurricane Ida. That is a big recreational opportunity and strength in South Bethlehem that we're looking forward to recreating. Friendship Park is also currently in its final design and engineering stage after a community-led process. And this new design includes a splash pad, which will be a win for a neighborhood with no pools in walking distance. Native plants that currently exist in the Harmony Pavilion, Tranquility Park, and Hoover Mason Trestle and Cafe La Lodge are being maintained by different groups, but we also acknowledge Bethlehem Backyards for Wildlife, who are maintaining those native gardens on the Hoover Mason Trestle and South Bethlehem Greenway through a volunteer schedule. We also acknowledge EAC, their green committee that conducted a native perennial planting project outside the perimeter of Madison Park. And Kate Jackson leading the way with Lehigh University on conducting a trash mapping project with several students and identifying key repeat problem areas to be addressed by the city. We're also very thankful for our forester and public works that planted 30 trees in Enix Park, Madison Park, McNamara Park, Jenkins Park, Triangle Park, Clearview Park, Rose Garden, Memorial Pool Dog Park, and City Hall and Monocacy Park. So thank you. And the Health Bureau that had community garden signups at Clearview Park, Rockland Park, and Yellis Track, but also in that decision making really wanted to make sure that we still give the agency to those that are currently having stewardship over the Southside Gardens in MLK Park, Esperanza, and Linfield. Finally, in terms of shade structures, which we know increase cooling and reduce incidences of heat strokes and heat exhaustion, currently Friendship Park and Saucon Park in their rebuild stages will have shade structures in their rebuild plan. We give thanks to a number of strong partnerships. So through the Bethlehem Health Bureau, they recently did 2 outreach projects. One which was called Better Blocks for Bethlehem, in which they offered gift cards to folks as they kind of surveyed their concerns regarding quality of life issues on their blocks, and they're going to be taking that data to see how they can empower those neighborhoods. And they also did a emergency disaster preparedness event, which was called a Stock Up event. And they partnered with Ideal Food Basket on September 23rd to help 160 individuals and families with a voucher to purchase emergency food and supply items in case of any kind of natural disaster or any disaster that might happen in their neighborhoods. BCED has also recently given community development grant dollars to support the new Fountain Hill Food Pantry, Hispanic Center Lehigh Valley Food Pantry, Kellen Foundation, and Fresh Food Mobile Market, as well as New Bethany Choice Pantry and New Bethany Trinity Food Kitchen, and YWCA in terms of collaborating with Bethlehem Area School District on finding out the needs for our youth and the recreation opportunities that they want to see happen. They've conducted multiple surveys for both parents and students in the district and had multiple interviews to figure out how the city and local partners can help provide those recreation opportunities. In terms of council and committees that we have kind of strengthened over the past year, we thought it was critical that our EJ steering committee doesn't do this work in a silo. So we have paired up with Community Action's Public and Green Space Committee to work bi-monthly towards mutual goals, and also had 4 neighborhood level meetings to talk to residents in some areas of the South Side to figure out what were their most pressing quality of life issues. And so those were held at Brockwell Middle School, Linfield Community Center, Southside Lofts, and Cathedral Church of the Nativity. And so as we look to next year, as Dr. Jackson said, we are going to be really moving forward with creating a framework for the Climate Action Plan, which will help those that come after us, right? Because it's not just about us here and now, it's those that come after us to really understand how we approach the Climate Action Plan in its entirety and all these different implementation committees. And so we plan on doing additional engagement with the community. We plan on creating an apprenticeship program, hopefully with Bethlehem Area School District, Bethlehem Area Vocational School, Moravian University, Northampton Community College, and also Lehigh University, which just received a SEED grant. It's for a SEED EF NRT program, which allows students to create an equitable decarbonized energy future. So we're going to be looking at opportunities with each of those schools to see what are the organic ways that they can come to City Hall and help work on some of these issues with us, and help them give help with agency and voice in terms of how we do the work. And we also intentionally are going to keep working with Environmental Advisory Council and Bethlehem Backyards for Wildlife to expand native planting, and excited to just have our forester continue to plant new trees, which she's told our steering committee that she plans on doing. So we're so grateful for the opportunity to work alongside all of the different leaders in our Climate Action Plan. And so now I turn it over to Sherry Panchishan, who's also been a great leader in all of this work, to talk about the Food and Waste Committee.
Thanks, Janine. Hi, I'm Sherry Panchishan, and I represent the Local Food and Waste Subcommittee for the Climate Action Plan. And the members of our subcommittee have been working on 3 initiatives. And one is to move towards zero waste. Another initiative is to increase access to healthy foods. And another initiative is food recovery. So the members and I have been working on, under the zero waste, we've been working on a waste reduction plan for our large festivals and organizations to improve recycling efforts and reduce waste among our large events and our festivals. We are looking towards working with our food vendors to try to use more sustainable and eco-friendly food vessels. And we're also going to be working towards this year in 2024, we're going to be working on composting and doing an educational campaign on reducing household food waste. Under our community garden initiative, our increasing access to healthy foods, we have implemented a couple of community gardens that Janine just mentioned. And we have those plots available for residents to lease during the growing season. But we recognize that we are not the only people who are working in the community garden space. And we are also working on a community garden process to allow other organizations to also have community gardens in the city, and that we have a standardized process to make it easy and fair and equitable for all. And then our last initiative that we're working on is food recovery. So we do realize that there's a lot of food here in the city that can be recovered for those who may need it, or for organizations who may be able to repurpose it. So we are looking at the FDA food code to look to see how we can recover that food, how we can source those foods, and how we can then repurpose it safely. So we've been looking at that food code. We've been looking at draft policies, doing our research with other organizations who are doing food recovery. And we've begun to draft some kind of a framework on how we can move this forward in 2024. So in 2024, under our food recovery, we're looking at creating that process and piloting that program to try and recover the food. So that's what we've been working on, and that's what we will be working on in 2024. So I'd like to now introduce Darlene Heller to talk about her subcommittees that she's been working on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Darlene Heller. I'm the Director of Planning and Zoning for the city. And it's great to see so many people here. And one of the things that I think about when we look at our initiatives and the projects that we're working on is that we don't do it alone. We have an awful lot of partners, and I see many of them in the room. And thank you for that. Under land use and green space, one of the projects that we're working on is the urban forestry master plan. A couple of people have mentioned the city forester. Olivia Teal is here. She's fairly new with the city. I don't know if you've all been able to meet her yet, but she's working hard. And she has a final draft of a plan that we will be moving forward with in 2024 to try to have that adopted. And she'll be continuing with tree planting efforts in city parks and elsewhere. We'll be working with her on that to try to find additional funding and to lend support in those initiatives. Under land use and green space more generally, we did have, we're working on a subdivision and land development ordinance. We've had that reviewed by WSP, who was the consulting team for the climate action plan initially. And also the EAC. They've both been able to review it with a lens on climate action and equity. And so we've been able to incorporate many of those comments in the document before we finalize that. I also want to mention that the EAC has been very helpful to us as we review new land developments that come into the city. They have been able to review each of those, and provide comment. We also work with Lanta on those reviews. The next committee is transportation and mobility, but we have Lanta participate in those reviews as well to look at them from a general transportation transit lens. And then we continue to work towards grant opportunities for additional green space projects. We have received funding for the north end, or the southern end of the Monocacy Way Trail. Basil Yandem is here too from the Department of Public Works, and he'll talk to you about their projects, but we'll be working with them to try to design and construct that project this year. And we also have submitted for a grant funding for a recreation plan for the city. We haven't received an announcement on that award yet. We hope that that comes soon, but we'll be looking at overall resources for parks and recreation. Resources are always limited. We want to make sure that we're prioritizing them in a fair and equitable way and in a really efficient way. So we'll take an overview look at our Parks and Recs programs and resources when we receive that grant award. And then we continue to prioritize resources in our underserved neighborhoods. And we work with the Southside Tomorrow Committee. There's an open space committee. Dr. Jackson is very involved in that committee as well, to try to look at really what are the needs, where should we be investing, and how can we invest most efficiently in response to neighborhood need. So the committees that we work with out in the public are very critical. The next committee is Transportation and Mobility, and I'll just continue on. One of the things that we're working on, the plan talks about EV charging and parking. And this year, the garage at 3rd and Polk was opened up. It's a great garage. And the parking authority really, I think we can say this is the first garage that's really designed as a multimodal hub. It does serve vehicles, but it also has sheltered bike parking. It also has information for transit. It has a lot of resources and improvements in that garage that we don't see elsewhere in the other garages. So that's a big move forward. We continue to look at alternate transportation opportunities, and we work with other partners, the Coalition for Appropriate Transportation, Community Bike Works. We continue to reach out with them, and they provide guidance for us on how to allocate resources, etc. We also work with the Health Bureau. They have a bike share program. They continue to look at upgrading and fine-tuning that. And again, CTAC, they've been working on their pedestrian safety program this year. I think they did a kickoff with Mayor Reynolds earlier in the year, and they help us to really promote and provide education about pedestrian safety. Lanta is a great partner with us. They do meet monthly with the Department of Public Works to coordinate shelters and bus routes, etc., with our public streets. They are, as I said, a partner in reviewing all of our land development plans in the city. They really have a great outreach program, and you may be familiar with the bus rapid transit route along Broad Street and through to the south side. They've really been enhancing transit specifically in the urban cores, and we do see some benefit to that. I've been hearing comments myself about the appreciation that transit riders have for that enhanced service in the city. Under grants and coordination, of course, we're always looking for funding from outside resources. So we did receive funding for implementation of the Broad Street Active Transportation Plan on the East Broad Street end. We'll be working again with DPW to design that, lay that out. We'll have significant pedestrian safety improvements along that core. We'll have several, I think, intersections for pedestrian improvements. Again, I mentioned that DPW is now working with Lanta on a monthly basis, and then we could just continue to look for resources for implementation of many of our priorities. We've applied for a Safe Streets for All grant from the federal government. There are many additional resources at the federal level for some of our projects. We haven't received an award for that yet, but we're expecting that to come shortly. So we'll continue to plug away. And now I'm going to turn it over to Basil. You can talk about some of your projects.
Good morning, guys. I'm Bethlehem. I'm the Chief of Engineering and Deputy Director of Public Works. I recently took over the CAP project from Matt after he left us. I'm gonna talk about the municipal operation that we've been working on. The main thing that we started working on, it was the GHG inventory, which and we'll work with WSP, and they gave the recommendation on priorities of emission reduction, which is very important for our city. The other things that we continue doing on a yearly basis is we buy 100% renewable energy, and we continue to work on that every year, and we still look for local sourcing options. It's a little bit tough, but we still work on that. We're gonna begin to purchase 100% renewable natural gas this in 2023, and we continue for 2024. The other important things, we invest in energy efficiency project at City Hall. One project that's going on right now is the upgrade of the HVAC controls and lighting at City Hall. For next year, we continue on working on changing the chiller and the boilers. All these projects provide better efficiency and energy. One of other things is very important that everybody is into right now is the EV and hybrid electrification of our fleet. We continue to work on that. So far, between the city and the parking authority, we have over 20 vehicles, which consists of over 5% of our fleet. As for partnership, we have approved a contract for the Reprapian Buffer Restoration in Saucon Park in coordination with the Wildland Conservancy. Each one of these that I have mentioned so far, we continue to work on for the next year. Also, one very important thing, I got a result today. Every year, we submit a report to CDP. CDP is the Carbon Disclosure Project. It's considered one of the golden standard for environmental globally. In 2021 and 2022, our score was a D. We submit our CAP plan. Our score was a D for 2021 and 2022. This morning, I received the result that after we submit this year with WSP and their support, we moved up the score B, which is we are now on an average and regionally, and we are above average globally. The global average is C. Now our score is a B. So I believe that we are improving. We're doing a good job, and I believe we're proud of that. Now, thank you. And now I want to introduce Jeff Irvin from WSP to continue. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Basil. So my name is Jeff Irvin. I'm an Assistant Vice President with WSP, and it's been my great pleasure to support the city with both the development of the Climate Action Plan back in 2020 through 2021, and now the implementation for the last 2 years of the plan. And WSP, as the other speakers have indicated, is supporting multiple committees, but I'm personally participating in the Buildings Committee and the Electricity Sourcing Committee, so I'll be talking to you about those today. And Basil mentioned the greenhouse gas inventory. Buildings are particularly important as found by that inventory as the largest source of emissions in Bethlehem. Across the U.S., transportation is the biggest source of emissions, but here in the city, it's our building stock, and that includes both the fuels that we use, like natural gas, as well as the electricity that powers our buildings. And so progress that we've made in the building sector this year has really started with increasing awareness. It's an exciting time across the U.S. for building owners and occupants because there's increasing federal funds available to increase efficiency of buildings, install renewable energy, and to ultimately save money on electricity bills and energy bills. And so we have integrated energy efficiency incentives and new options available through the Federal Inflation Reduction Act and weatherization programs into our public education materials, and we're going to hear about those coming up later in the program. But we've really just been trying to focus initially on increasing awareness of those new opportunities so that folks know how they can save money on their energy bills. We're also increasing awareness of existing great work that's happening in the space on weatherization and energy audits and efficiency efforts, such as with partners like Community Action Lehigh Valley. We are also pursuing funding ourselves from some of the new federal initiatives through the Inflation Reduction Act, and that includes taking the first steps to pursue the U.S. Department of Energy's Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant Program, which includes a number of options to seed funding to develop programs that will increase electrification and energy efficiency across our building stock. We've also increased awareness of another existing program, the CPACE, or Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program, which is administered by the counties. This is a program that allows commercial buildings to access lower interest financing and to kind of pay back for energy efficiency upgrades through a bundled payment that basically allows the savings to start to pay for themselves. And so we've increased awareness of that through the Department of Community and Economic Development and continue to do so in the coming year. In the coming year, we're going to continue on all of these initiatives, but a big lever for reducing energy and emissions in buildings is the building codes themselves. And so the state of Pennsylvania right now is going through a process to adopt updated international energy conservation codes, and the city is participating in that process. But this committee is also reviewing opportunities to go past those minimum requirements where we can, with approval by the state. So we're looking at opportunities for that, which is a big lever for reducing emissions and energy, particularly for new construction. We'll also continue to pursue opportunities for federal funding, as I mentioned, and partnerships to increase energy efficiency and weatherization. And then another initiative that we're going to be ramping up in the coming year is looking at public benchmarking, starting with the city building. So this is an initiative that many cities have pursued, including Philadelphia, to bring more transparency to the energy consumed by building stock of larger buildings. And it allows building tenants and occupiers to have a sense of how much energy and how much money they're going to be spending on their energy bills before they occupy a building. And so we want to start with the city buildings and the municipal stock with transparency into the energy consumed by buildings like City Hall. And so we'll be pursuing that up in the coming year as in partnership with Basel and the Municipal Operations Committee. And then lastly, as I mentioned before, we'll be promoting the Commercial Property Assessed Clean Energy Program as well in partnership with the counties. So now I'm going to move on to electricity sourcing, which is a related committee. And so I mentioned buildings is the largest source of emissions here in the city. And within our buildings, electricity is the largest source of emissions in our buildings. So it's really the largest source across the city is the electricity that we consume. And reducing emissions from electricity is something that we can't do alone as the city. We mentioned that several times in the CAP. We have to do it in partnership with the federal government and our state representatives. And so we are working with the state assembly members and trying to push state legislation and support state legislation that will increase renewable energy here in the state of Pennsylvania and the broader PJM region. But initially, the committee has focused on what we can control, what we can do locally, starting with updating the city's solar ordinance and following recommendations from the EAC to update the city's solar ordinance. And we've seen an uptick in solar permits as a result. So we had 76 permits approved for solar installations in 2022, which was a big increase over 2021. And then now in 2023, through the first 3 quarters of the year, we are on track to exceed that 76 number as well. So very exciting. We've also increased awareness of flexibility that the city can provide with approval by the fire marshal to allow for larger installations on rooftops by working with the fire marshal to ensure that the setbacks, basically how far the solar has to be from the edge of the roof, is safe, but can allow for more solar to go up on the roof and provide more clean energy to our city. We are, again, just like with the building sector, increasing awareness of new federal funding and new incentive opportunities to install renewable electricity and solar PV locally here. There are many incentives through the Inflation Reduction Act, and we're working with the Public Education Committee to bring greater awareness to those. And then we're also looking at grant opportunities. So we've signaled our partnership with the Council of Development of Finance Agencies in pursuing the EPA's Clean Communities Investment Accelerator. So that's an exciting opportunity that we're starting to pursue. And then, as I mentioned before, we're continuing to signal support for statewide changes that would enable both more solar and wind energy to go onto the Pennsylvania grid, but also allow greater access to that energy for our frontline communities. And so that includes initiatives like community solar, solar for schools, and expanding the state's alternative energy portfolio standard. And then lastly, we're also looking at opportunities for solar on city buildings. That's in partnership with the Municipal Operations Committee. We're exploring with partners doing assessments of the city buildings. There's a lot of potential on the library. It's very exciting. And just trying to raise awareness of all of these different initiatives. And we'll be continuing to do that in the coming year. I think that the biggest opportunity for 2024 is the continued work with the state on code adoption and being able to go past those minimum requirements. But we'll be working with the Public Education Committee as well to continue to bring awareness to the community about all these opportunities to save money on energy bills through installations of solar and other renewable energy. So that wraps up the Electricity Sourcing Committee. I'm going to hand off now to Laura Collins to take us through our next committee.
Good morning. I'm Laura Collins. I'm the Director of Community and Economic Development. I'm going to talk about our last two subcommittees, which are large organizations and institutions and also public engagement. I think in each of the committees that we've heard from so far, the idea of partnership with organizations, with community partners, with the public generally is sort of interwoven into the work that we do in each of those committees, but we also have some specific initiatives that focus on that idea of partnership and collaboration and really solidifying, in addition to just bringing people into every conversation that we have about all these initiatives, how do we also solidify that? So in the area of large organizations and institutions, we're focusing on regional partnerships and also carbon reduction. In the area of regional partnerships, we're making progress on developing a Green Ribbon Commission. Green Ribbon Commission would be a partnership between organizations, institutions, businesses, and the government to develop strategies that have a common benefit for each of those sectors and also that have common implementation paths. It's modeled after Boston's Green Ribbon Commission, and the group would support sector-specific working groups dedicated to implementing the CAP strategies affecting each of those sectors, devising sector-specific greenhouse gas reduction pathways, removing common industry barriers across sectors, and sharing industry knowledge on decarbonization and climate preparedness. The Commission would also facilitate collaboration across all members on cross-cutting opportunities and challenges, such as renewable energy purchasing. So the city laid the foundation for such a body in the establishment of the Climate Action Plan. As Mayor Reynolds talked about, it was a very stakeholder-led process. Many partners in the room today. So what we're doing at this point in the coming year is launching that commission and really finalizing what the structure looks like, membership, funding sources, building on the great work that's already happening in the community, and also continuing as part of the Three City Coalition created this past year in 2023 between Mayor Reynolds, Mayor Turk, and Mayor Panto, which furthered that regional collaboration. So relatedly, we will also continue to make progress on developing a carbon challenge, which would allow large organizations and institutions to lead the process to achieve the city's carbon reduction goals. It'd be voluntary, coming out of the mayor's office, and in partnership with private, public, and nonprofit organizations, with the goal of achieving carbon reduction even more ambitious than we have in our own plan. And then I'll just move over then to public engagement, and that's really one of the exciting things that we're here today to talk about as well, to kind of like end all of this information sharing with, answering the question of how does everybody get involved as we continue to move forward. And I know everybody in this room is already very involved already, but how do we continue to share that across our community? So a primary goal of the Climate Action Plan and the Public Engagement Subcommittee in particular was to create a climate challenge to educate Bethlehem residents about climate change and its potential impacts, and also to motivate and empower residents and businesses to reduce emissions and participating in this climate resiliency effort. So the city is looking to build on many successful local organizations and campaigns, ranging from Alliance for Sustainable Communities Lehigh Valley to our institutions who are doing this kind of work, or the Nurture Nature Center in Easton, which we know is starting a 4-year project for climate education called Create Connections. And that program, for example, focuses on engaging youth and residents around Bethlehem's climate plan, Easton's climate plan. We're engaging and expanding on all of that great work in the development of the city's climate action challenge. So in 2023, we did begin developing that challenge, developing a toolkit so that we can share it with other people, and implementing a communications plan. So I think at that point, I will just turn it back over to Mayor Reynolds to really talk about how we're going to continue that engagement.
Thank you, Ms. Collins. And before we do anything else, I just want to thank Janine, Sherry, Darlene, Jeff, Laura, Basil for coming up here and just really delivering all of the wonderful things that we were doing here in the city of Bethlehem. Laura also had to be careful with the verb she used, because we didn't just work on that Bethlehem Climate Challenge here in 2023, but we are ready to launch that climate challenge here today. One of the big questions we've had from the beginning of this is, what can I do? What am I able to do here in the city of Bethlehem? And we have 76,000 people living here in our community. But we also have businesses, we have institutions, and we have talked a lot over the years about what the city of Bethlehem has done internally within this building, within our city facilities. But over the past year, and this work has really been led by Mrs. Stein in the mayor's office, to be able to get to this point where we can turn it over and say, this isn't just about what we're doing within the walls of City Hall, but now there's an opportunity for everybody in Bethlehem, no matter what is your role, to have a part in working on our path to sustainability. And before I talk any more about that and how this is going to work, I am going to let Ms. Stein play a kind of preview video that we're going to be sharing on social media.
Hi, I'm Angie Stein, the Director of Mayor's Initiatives for the City of Bethlehem, and I'm here today to announce I'm Angie Stein, the Director of Mayor's Initiatives for the City of Bethlehem, and I'm here today to announce the launch of the Bethlehem Climate Challenge. The Climate Action Plan launched in 2021 and began implementation when Mayor J. William Reynolds took office in 2022. We have several implementation committees internally here at City Hall, but this will be the first time that the Bethlehem community can come together to help tackle climate change as part of the city's Climate Action Plan by pledging to take on items small and large in their everyday life. To join the challenge, visit webuild.bethlehem-pa.gov, which is the city's engagement platform. You'll visit the All Projects tab, click on the Climate Action Plan. You'll be able to view the entire Climate Action Plan on this page, as well as any updates from our implementation committees from the last 2 years, in addition to year 3 goals that have just been announced. Once you complete the challenge, you'll be sent an email summarizing the list of actions that you've pledged to commit to. You will also be able to visit City Hall to pick up your Climate Action Plan challenge yard sign, helping to spread the word with a QR code to get your neighbors to participate in the challenge as well. You'll also be listed on the We Build Bethlehem website as a climate champion. Thank you so much for taking the Bethlehem Climate Challenge and for doing your part to reduce GHG emissions and make the community more sustainable for years to come. Don't forget to visit the Engagement Toolkit to help share social media graphics and posts to help get others involved.
Thank you, Ange.
Hi, I'm Angie.
The climate challenge is it is tailored to your individual role here in the city of Bethlehem. So if you click on any of those different areas, whether or not it's a city resident, a K through 12 student, a large organization, a college student, a small organization, it's different tasks that you're able to take, that you're able to sign up for. And that took a lot of work. I compared it to a choose your own adventure book when you were a kid. You had to build out all these different trees that you could go to, no matter what your role was here in the city of Bethlehem. And those things are going to be able to change as this builds on throughout the years. But this is really, really exciting for us because it is the biggest step that we are going to take in our years of getting to this point to be able to take our climate action work and turn it outside. And a big part of this is obviously our larger organizations. And one of the things that we had talked about last week was it would be great if some of our larger organizations were willing to commit by this morning, to be able to do this. And we actually had two in the past couple of days that said, you can count us in. One is Northampton Community College, so we want to give them a big round of applause. And the other one is Mr. Fernstrom and the great folks over at the Bethlehem Parking Authority, who also said that they are committed to doing their part. And, you know, Dr. Ruth wanted to be here, the president of NCC today, but he could not be as he had a previous engagement. But he was super excited. I saw him yesterday at a budget address, and he said, this is important to our community, being the NCC community. And I really just can't thank him enough for being the first organization to step out there and say, we want to be a part of this. Part of the reason why we thought there was such an opportunity for the Climate Action Plan was because we know all of our institutions, whether or not it's the Bethlehem Area School District, our health networks, Lehigh, Moravian, NCC, they're already doing a lot as far as sustainability is concerned. And one of the things that Dan and Jeff and Catherine have always reminded us is our biggest goal here is not just what can we do ourselves, but it's convincing everybody else that sustainability is the most important thing in our lives, as far as the way we live our lives and how we allocate resources. So I cannot thank NCC and the BPA enough for signing on here. In the future, we are going to have other events to be able to honor these partners. This is going to be one of the things that we talk about in the future, about our partners and the wonderful things they're doing for sustainability. But this is you can't find too many initiatives like this that really tailors whatever your personal experience is and your personal role to being able to do something. So if you're in third grade at Thomas Jefferson Elementary School, or you're running a health network, you both have this series of actions that you're going to be able to commit to create a more sustainable Bethlehem. And we are excited about the yard signs. I see my great friend Kathy Fox back here. Now that the co-op's about open, you can take these yard signs as your next way to knock on everybody's door to get them to kind of spread the word. But ultimately, this is going to come down to all of you and your ability to convince other people to sign on to the challenge. We got here not just because of the incredible work of city employees, but because this was something that mattered so much to the people of Bethlehem. And our ability to get 20 people to sign up for this, or 50 people, or 2,000 people is going to come down to all of your ability to be able to spread the word, to be able to talk to people about why this is important and what you're able to do. And I just, we could not be more excited about this. And I just want to, once again, I want to thank everybody with WSP and Angie and all of our city employees that helped to get to this point, which is really, really a big deal for us. So thank you. And just to wrap up here, I can't thank everybody here enough. And one of the things I want to mention too is you don't find a lot of cities where you have sustainability conversations and you see representatives from your police department and your fire department show up here. And one of the things that I stress that we talk all the time is that we are a team here in City Hall. We are a team in our community, and we root for each other. And we celebrate with each other, but we also tackle problems and challenges together. And that is a representation of both Deputy Mikesell and Captain Leckman and Chief Aki. But that's the kind of City Hall and city and community that we live in. One where we understand that success is only possible if we are working together and a little bit outside of what your usual comfort zone is. And I could go through and tell you everything Janine and Sherry and everybody in that group does, but this is the way I kind of talk about it, is we tend to think that progress is like, well, if the good people just try harder to do the good thing, then it's going to happen. But that's how it works with like low-hanging fruit, but that's not how the biggest progress happens. The biggest progress happens on a Tuesday at 10 a.m., where you have to have a semi-difficult conversation with someone that you like or you find sympathetic. And there is no progress that I've learned in 16 years that you can make that doesn't involve having some difficult conversations with people that you like or you find sympathetic. And when you're talking about sustainability, when you're talking about how can we use energy better, or how can we, get rid of trash at festivals before, that's difficult work that people in City Hall often take on themselves when nobody else is watching. I'm not in the meeting. I'm not writing the email. I'm not off-site. They're just saying, this is something that we care about in City Hall. We like everything about you. Maybe we went to high school with you. Maybe we've known you. You live down the street from us. We like you. But on this one thing, we're asking you, is it possible for you to work with us to a little bit more? And that really, really, really is the secret ingredient, I think, of employees here at City Hall. is they understand that you can push for that individual thing that might be a little bit challenging, that might lead to a little bit of disagreement in the bigger public good lens. And I am inspired every day by watching and hearing and seeing those email threads that come back where the city employees are pushing and pushing and pushing. And you can't have a press conference every time to be like, Darlene Heller sent a great email last Wednesday at 9 a.m. But she did, as did a lot of people. And this is, I feel that way about all of our employees. And that's going to kind of be what the challenge is going to be for us going forward. We've taken kind of a lot of the low-hanging fruit, but the difficult conversations we're going to have, or the challenge is probably a better word to use, is going to come down to our ability and our patience and our understanding and our trust in our relationships with people, that we are working together to do big things together. And you obviously have seen here that we're looking at all these things through this lens of sustainability. And I guess I would just, I would finish with two things. The big challenge for me, and I think is I'm very honest, and sometimes you have to say the thing into the world to make it happen, is that Lehigh Valley Green Ribbon Commission is one of the things that, we really need to make happen in 2024. We are doing wonderful things here in the city of Bethlehem, but just as we talk about with housing, our future, our ability to solve these challenges cannot be solved by people in this room. As with housing, we can't do it alone. There's not enough land. We're not able to control everything that goes on outside of the city, and we're going to need those regional partnerships. We're going to need those partnerships with the counties, with the planning commission, with everybody on a regional level to be able to build up this idea that sustainability matters. And that's only going to happen. Mayor Turk and Mayor Pancher are on board, but I think we all know those concepts are easier sometimes than doing the actual work. But I can tell you from a personal point of view is I'm hoping a year from now, when we are talking about all of the incredible progress we've made in 2024, that's one of the things. We are very excited that one of the grants that came through as far as the infrastructure dollars that we have to thank President Biden, Congressman Wild, and Senator Casey for again and again and again, is going to allow for regional climate action planning, which we really haven't done. I think it's almost $1 million is the amount of money that is coming into the Lehigh Valley. But it's an opportunity for us to do that right. And that's never guaranteed without the people that are involved and the organizations that are involved. And I guess I'll just finish by, people always want a lot of progress. And our goal is always trying to find, what's the small initiative we can do on Saturday morning to build the trust, to get people to understand that the big thing is coming next year or the year after. And every year in Bethlehem, we are announcing, we're cutting ribbons on big things, but we're also planning those things. We're also starting to think about what those things are. But that first step in getting people to believe that the big things are possible that we seem to accomplish every week in Bethlehem comes down to what is it that we can do on Saturday morning that has energy, that has the vibe that we want, that makes people understand that there are special people in this community. And that's not something that just people in City Hall do. It is everybody out there that shows up, every citizen, every environmental group, every arts organization, everybody out there that's like, we're going to do this thing on Saturday to build that trust that big things can happen, because that's really how we accomplish things. And I think I will finish by saying that we're under an hour, which is we're sustainable in time too. So I want to thank everybody for coming out today. Once again, if you have an opportunity, please thank everybody that's been working on the Climate Action Plan, everyone that presented today. It's another big step for us as a community. Sign up for that climate challenge and pick up your art sign. Okay, thank you.